No intro, straight onto the guides. Junkrat's primary weapon, the RNG, makes Junkrat launch grenades that deal up to 120 damage on direct hits, moving at 25 meters per second and firing 3 shots every 2 seconds. A fundamental behind Junkrat's grenade launcher is the fact that his sightlines are to be kept short despite the fact that he's a poke hero. For instance, on Hanamura first point attack, using Concussion Mine through the window will give you 2 short sightlines onto the adjacent high grounds and onto the choke respectively. Adding an extra layer of nuance to this, Junkrat also likes to hold tight and narrow and enclosed spaces, as Temple explains here.
Or get yourself over here where you can control the power position. This is actually the part of this map that matters a lot, and you as Junkrat are really good at going, hey, I have a mind for this. Hey, I can bounce nades in here and it's absolutely brutal for them to push up into, etc. You controlling this is the best thing that you can do for your team. And if you're sitting on 2 mines, you can mine yourself up here whenever you want and go, hey, I'll do this, blah, blah, blah. As they start to pay attention to you, if you're not getting the support you want, you just drop. Your second mine's regenerating again, and you're still controlling this, which is incredibly valuable to your team. If you literally see that all 6 of them push this way, all 6 of them, so that you go, okay, they're not coming through here, you just turn over here and go, okay, I'll mine from here. And you're still good, you still have cover options, you still get to rain nades down. That's where you want to be working from.
That concept is probably the most important one in this video because it's applicable to almost every hero, hence I recommend you to pause the video to view some more additional examples. This isn't to say that high ground angles are bad for Junkrat, such as on Dorado's second point, but that these longer open sightlines make Junkrat more prone to hit scan, hence taking these short sightline flanks can help you control the map. Adding on to that, you can and should bounce your grenades off of surfaces to land damage without putting yourself at risk, as Sparrow explains here.
He can actually put pressure in space without actually having to physically be there. So in a way, that's kind of like his range. Now, it's inaccurate and messy and goofy, and you have to memorize the bounce spots, but there you go. Because if you could find a way to position yourself up here and spam in a way that actually contests his choke, or maybe you could find a bounce location that bounces off here and lands here, then that needs to be done. Because you standing in choke here, even though you're up 1, is incredibly inefficient.
Junkrat's first ability, the Zofia Concussion V2, makes Junkrat trigger one of his homemade mines dealing up to 120 damage in a 3 meter radius with 2 charges, with each charge being on a 8-second cooldown. Starting off with this tip, as obvious as it is, make sure to jump after you use your concussion mine to gain a higher altitude. The most common and important piece of tech is of course the one-shot combo, done by shooting a grenade and then using your mine immediately afterwards. Note that this isn't done the other way around in case the knockback of your mine boops the enemy out of the grenades. An important concept to grasp with the concussion mine is that one should be used for mobility and the other should be used for lethality. Here's Spolo explaining how you can utilize the one-shot combo by waiting for your second mine just before you explode through a narrow flank.
What is my problem with this engage though? No mine. Look at this. What if he runs away here? What if he meant... Now your Zarya follows up, but no mine. You literally had to wait 2 seconds before, or not even 2 seconds, like a second and a half, where you could have done this. Because look, right now you jump, then you've got it. It's like 2 or 3 seconds. You needed 1 mine to get it done, and you couldn't wait.
Building on that further, you can and should use a concussion either aggressively to fight back for important space, or to have a flight response and play in a way where their space doesn't matter, as Spolo gives a visual example of here.
If you're going to go in, so first off, you don't even really have to go in. You could go to point here and spam from here, maybe. Right? Or you could play underneath, or you could wrap around behind. But you would either wrap around behind and engage here, or you'd conk up here and directly go up backline. Like you would just go in. So again, high risk, high reward, and low risk, low reward. But this is high risk, low reward. This is not what we want. You're concussive mining in the middle of the open high ground that you've just given up. The McCree's stealing your angle, exactly. So you either take it from him or you fight in a way where that angle doesn't matter. Do you hear me? That applies to any hero in Overwatch. You either fight for that angle and take it away, or you play in a way where it doesn't matter. So you go around behind where it's like, okay, McCree's high ground sucks, but it doesn't matter. Or you either fight him for it. But you don't just stand out in the open.
This one-shot combo also works best at short ranges, and as I've explained prior, Junkrat's most impactful contribution can be on short sight-lined enclosed flanks. This means that you can easily threaten important spaces with your combo and or get a one-shot from an angle. For example, on Route 66 third point, you can combo an enemy who tries to duel you. If you miss your grenade, you can also throw your second mine to make this more forgiving. Once you've won this flank, you also have a short to medium range sightline to land your combo once again. Speaking more in general terms, concussion mines should fundamentally be used to gain high ground angles in order to lay in damage from places where the enemy team can't as easily hide from. For instance, on Gibraltar first point defense, concussing up to the blue box will not only allow you to control it, but to also lay in damage from above. Concussion can also be used for knockback to disrupt aggression, which should primarily be used to peel for yourself or your team. Referring back to the Gibraltar example, if a flanker decides to contest you on blue box, you can easily concuss them away. Try your best to not also knock yourself off of the high ground in the process. Other forms of directly peeling the Junkrat can be throwing a concussion mine on a flanker in your backline, or to throw a concussion mine or two on the enemy frontline if you see them speeding and inting into you very quickly. Lastly, there are some concussion rollouts you can perform with 3 mines instead of 2 by waiting for a second mine after you place your first one. The most obvious examples of these are as soon as you get out of spawn on attack, but I'll go through an example on Blizzard World in the poke section of my guide. Junkrat's second ability, Jason's Trap, makes Junkrat toss out a trap dealing 80 damage with 100 HP, locking the entrapped enemy for 3 seconds. I'll also group in his passive, which makes Junkrat drop 300 damage worth of grenades. Fundamentally, the trap is used to mock and deter flankers. For instance, on King's Row third point attack, when holding high ground, you can toss a trap at the end of the high ground closest to their spawn to trap anyone who tries to reach you. Building off this, I've devised 3 rules in the acronym C.C.C to help you decide which flank to mark. The first 2 rules are to mark flanks which are closest to you and ones which are the most commonly used. For instance, on Realtor first point defense, you should generally speaking mark the indoor right side flank as this is closer to your team than the flank all the way around coast side, and this flank is more commonly used especially by Roadhog players. The last rule is to place a trap based on where the enemy core paths. For example, on Nabani first point defense, if the enemy core decides to path high ground, then placing a trap somewhere underneath would abide by the former 2 rules. However, if the enemy core paths underneath, then it may be more appropriate to place a trap somewhere on high ground to protect yourself whilst you spam down from above. With the technicalities associated with trap, you don't want it to be the first thing an enemy sees. For instance, in the Realtor example, you want to trap past the corner as your team should hopefully be baiting some attention away from your trap. If you want to get even more technical, you can place this trap lengthwise at the edge of the corner to utilize the very end of your trap hitbox. Here's Temporal going into these technicalities in more depth.
As they're walking upstairs, there aren't enemies for them to look at. There's nothing for them to be worried about in here. So this is sort of in their sightlines. I don't love it. So I really would have preferred something that is going to be a little less obvious to them. Is going to be, hey, when they're more worried about other things a bit more. So when they're out here, they're worried about other things. When they're out here, they're worried about other things. If they come here and want to rotate this way, they're worried about other things. I actually would probably like your trap right here. Like, this is a place that I would prefer your trap, mine combo, etc. Now, there's other places that you can put your trap, mine combo, etc. I just gave you one as an improvement. And again, there's no threats for them to be really worried about in here. They're not looking in other directions. They're not distracted. And to make things worse, it's going to be at their eye level as they're walking up the stairs, which gives them extra chance to see it.
Another tip for trap is that if the enemy is directly on top of you, placing a trap just before you die could lock the enemy into facing your passive. The penultimate piece of advice is to not do the spawn, trap plus concussion mine combo against well-oiled teams in higher ranks. It's too many eggs placed in one basket, which is easily countered by a team with awareness. One last tad bit of micro to end off with is to try and double trap your enemies by predicting when they might move, as Jane explains here.
You can place a new trap down, but as soon as your new trap goes down, the old trap is deleted. So people will normally be instinctually trying to run away from your trap, like the moment they get broken free of the trap. So just a moment before that, if you can throw the trap behind them, they will back out of that trap immediately into a new trap. So you can kind of like double trap people, just based off of where you think they would instinctually want to retreat to.
I will also mention another use of trap in the flanking playstyle section of this guide. Junkrat's ultimate, the free kill, makes Junkrat rev up a motorized tire bomb with 100 HP, dealing up to 600 damage in a 10 meter radius that lasts for 10 seconds. Before I begin, if anyone doesn't know already, the rip tire glitch to where your tire spawns on the low ground has already been patched out. A fundamental concept which is dependent on how much value you receive is to time rip tire when attention is being baited elsewhere, as Temporal explains here.
As soon as they're committing and our team is committing back, etc., that's when we wanted to pull the tire. Because now, hey, our team is committing, their team is committing, they're in a situation where it is painful for them to turn and shoot at the tire, etc. It is painful for them to try to run away, etc., because they're already in the fight with our team. This tire was too early on 2 counts. Both a, hey, they weren't really committed to it yet, so they actually had attention available to try to deal with the tire, which is why you had to settle for the Anna so quick. Not that the Anna was bad, though the Anna was bad for the second reason of, hey, this didn't really buy you very much time. You didn't maximize the amount of time that you took off the clock with this defensive win.
Building on that further, you can use the 10-second duration to grind up walls and to stay stationary on walls, which produces almost no sound, so that the enemy team forget about your tire until the last second, as Temporal explains here.
Can't actually hit this one because, sure enough, that hog is doing a stupid amount of damage with his whole hog. Your tire's simply never going to get it. So if you were going to pop this tire to try to hold them back, to try to delay them, to try to make them go, oh, hey, we're using 3 ults, but we don't want to push, etc., you didn't want to send your tire in. You wanted to send your tire like out here and roll it up this wall and just sort of wait and, do the grinding stuff, etc., because you want them to sort of know that the tire exists, etc., and you can bring it back to protect you if they come, or if they come and try to turn the corner at all, you can go use them, etc. It's totally fine to go, hey, I'm using this tire to see if I can make you guys burn down the 3 of your ults that you're using.
With more wacky tires, you can also combine Concussion rollouts to detonate the tire in the middle of the enemy team. In order to pull this off, you need to time your rollouts just after your tanks engage, as the enemy team will be fully focused on your front line and not on you, helping you to get away with this wacky play. Additionally, you can also use tire for map control purposes and winning out key flanks. Again, referring back to Route 66, you could tire this flank by the lorry to win the angle and give your team a numbers advantage. The penultimate tip with tire is to utilize roofs wherever possible, as the tire becomes very predictable and hard to track. A great example to do this on would be on Oasis City Centre. Lastly, make sure to use rip tire in a position where you yourself aren't going to be vulnerable. Moving on to the positional, playstyle and compositional section of this guide. Likewise to Farah, Junkrat has 2 predominant playstyles, one of which is to punish chokes either down main or on a tight and close short sightline flank, as I've mentioned prior, and the other is to play as a short-range, explosive duelist flanker. The latter playstyle is more appropriate against immobile compositions who can't easily punish you for taking aggressive flanks when you try to land your one-shot combo, as Barlow explains here.
You can flank around this way and use this angle, and when you go this way, what you'll do is, number one, is you will use it, but you'll also probably kill whoever is here. So you'll want to quickly explode through, no pun intended, 2-tap whoever's here, or at least make them drop, and then either you can continue to run away this way, or you can just go back and play it to safety. Now, it's significant to note, and I think you need to be paying attention to this, that they do not have mobility, especially somebody like Tracer. So if you do go through this window and shoot them, you can continue to move in this direction and set up a deeper angle, and really nobody can go chase you down. If they do, they're risking their life, and they're not going to be able to 1v1 you.
This is where the alternative use of trap comes in, where you essentially guard your own solo flank in case anyone chases you. With Junkrat's general positioning, there are 4 general guidelines. Using Oasis City Centre as an example, the first guideline is to have cover or a corner. The second guideline is to have LOS onto the enemy team. The third guideline is to have good distance from angles so that the enemy flankers don't sneak up on you. And the fourth guideline is to have aggressive and defensive rotational options. Due to your vertical mobility on Junkrat, you should almost always be able to access more aggressive angles to play from. In Brawl, maximizing your ability to set up and utilize angles on the enemy team, especially in a wall mirror, is vital in terms of landing more effective damage, as Temporal explains here.
These guys go here, we're set up like this, we're set up to have our multiple angles. Again, we're Brawl and we're spread out, and I want to make sure that's clear. We're making sure that we can go, hey, feeding maybe Junkrat stuff down here, our Sim can peek this, our Lucio can, do little peek shots, etc., and our Zarya has their peeks, as does our BAP, etc. So when we get to what people's roles are, it's actually going to come down to, we want to make this entrance really hard. This team is still going to try to teleport past behind us, etc., because that's going to be better for them, but we still have a good angle even if they teleport past us.
In Dive, in terms of playing defensively, likewise the most DPS heroes that I've covered, you want to find the balance between playing split and playing stacked, as Sparlow explains here.
You don't want to position on top of the team because it allows the enemy team to be able to dive you without taking damage, because there's only one LOS where you're actually putting damage. Like, we could draw a straight line of where this damage is coming from, and it's here. They can hide from this damage in here, they can hide from the damage here, they can hide from the damage here, they can hide from the damage here. Whereas if you position just slightly here, not too much, where you can still be Harmony Orbed, Armor Pack, you can poke this pre-jump, this pre-jump, this pre-jump, this no longer has cover, this no longer has cover, this has significantly less cover, this has significantly less cover, and you can even peek down this hallway a little bit easier. Dive wants to corral you. Stacking against Dive is not the answer. It is being in positions where you can peel for each other, but you can poke out Dive before the fight happens. So you don't want to be isolated, but you don't want to be stacked.
In terms of playing aggressively, you again want to be utilizing angles so that the enemy Winston is deterred from diving, as Sparlow and Fafa explain here.
Nobody from Shock can stabilize here because of Reaper, and nobody from Shock can stabilize here because of Sombra. So you're absolutely right.
They also have angles, so now they're pressuring here, forcing this Diva to make an option of like, do I want to DM the Sombra? Do I want to DM the Reaper? Do I want to DM these guys?
The other thing that you can touch on as well, the reason why map control is good is not just because of like the vision manipulation that you're describing, but it's also because cover just doesn't exist. Like, Winston can't stop taking damage here. He can't stop taking damage here. He can't stop taking damage here. There is nowhere to hide because of the angles that allow people to shoot continuously. There never is any corner.
Building on that further, your angles also want to be in enclosed spaces with short sight lines so that heroes such as Sombra and Tracer will find it awkward to duel you. In that example, Dojo is a perfect example of this on Lijiang Tower. In Poke, with either playstyle, you want to be looking for surgical, short sight-lined angles. For instance, on Blizzard World First Point Attack, you could path right side to gain a short sight-lined angle onto their core in order to break the choke, or alternatively, you could pick the more Duelist playstyle and triple Concussion mine over the hate stack in an attempt to one-shot the enemy DPS and to win the angle. No outro, until next time.
And I say, hey, living